Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and we have two knife reviews in one. This is not a versus, this is just two knife reviews in one. We have the Miguron Koraki, and we have the Miguron Keryx. And we are going to start this off with the Miguron Koraki. Now, starting off with the Miguron Koraki, this is a dual ground S90V blade. Beautifully well done titanium frame lock with some really nice dimpling. I really like the texture of this. It makes a real tactile feel. Very comfortable in the hand. It is a very straightforward handle design. Now, this happens to be possibly the best front flipper I've ever tried, and I've tried a lot. And we'll get more into that here in just a second, but lots of heavy milling on the inside and beautiful pivot. I like the blue. I actually like their pivot. Now we'll get into the action, and then we'll get into the blade and the geometry, everything about the steel and everything else. But the front flipper, one reason why it's so incredibly good is, one, the detent is very well tuned for a front flipper, but besides that, this jimping is perfection for a front flipper. You can't get better jimping than this. It wraps all the way around. It's nice and sharp, nice and grippy. I can actually do it from the side, which is crazy. Normally you have to go right from the front, you know, like this, and not hit your table and go like that. This one, I mean, you can just breathe on it and this thing opens up perfectly well. I mean, it's so incredibly easy to get. But you have this nice tactile feel, so it stays in your hand really nice, grips you back really nice. Everything, it's like everything grips you back, and that's kind of good. And the detent isn't like overly strong, but it is perfectly tuned for the front flipper. Very solid, no play, any direction, extremely solid. The access to the lock bar, very nice. They put a nice chamfered edge right there while also raising it up just a little bit. So perfect access to the lock bar. Detent ball, nice and early, so it's always past the detent, and it is 100% fall shut action. I mean, this is a straight guillotine, and it almost feels loose, but there's no play any direction. This thing is just that smooth. Very, very smooth, but super easy to front flip. I handed this to somebody who's not good at front flipping, and they front flipped it just fine. It took them twice, but because the first time they did it, they went like this, you know, and then I told them, I said, no, just put your finger on top of here, let it rest on top, and then when you're ready, yank over, and they got it. But yeah, very, very easy front flipper. Now, you can see we have a hand satin finish on the top flat, a beautiful swedge on top, nice, strong, blade stock that goes all the way out to the tip. We have a little bit of a taper here. The thinner grind is up in the front. Now, normally this is reversed. Well, I guess it just depends, because there's a lot of knives that do have grinds like this, but in this case, we have the thinner grind on the front and then the thicker grind on the back. Now, that could be for like feather sticking and maybe some harder use stuff that you'd want to do with the back part right here. And then this thinner part area would be really nice for the detail work, you know, cutting things open. Now, I did hear that he's planning on doing one full flat grind one like this, well, with this grind right here. That's what I would love to see, because I think that would work out really, really good. Now, before we get into, or actually, no, we're getting into cutting performance. So how does it cut? The Ergos. Well, the Ergos are really, really nice in the hand. So it's very, very comfortable in any grip you put it in. I mean, this is an amazing, comfortable knife. Now, for regular slicing and cutting, it works just fine. It cuts really good. I did have to put a new edge on it. The edge was not very good. It wasn't very sharp. I think Miguron needs to work on their edges just a little bit. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But anyways, so the grind on this does change quite a bit. Right here in this area, it's right around 25 thousandths behind the edge. Now, from here to here, it doesn't change that much actually directly behind the edge. But what it does do is it changes dramatically going up the blade. But this is about 20 thousandths in this area right here. Right here is only about 13, or what was it? 13 thousandths right here. But then it goes to 25,000. So we have 25 thousandths, 13 thousandths, then it goes up to 20 thousandths, and then, you know, it gets a little bit thicker towards the tip. But, you know, the actual behind the edge thickness, you know, between this and this area doesn't change too much, but it does dramatically change going up the grind. So this is a lot slower of a taper and it's taller, while this is a little bit shorter and a little bit more rapid. And you can see that the change right there in the grind. The cutting performance worked out good. It cut really good. You know, it's not the best cutter, but it cuts. So I would say it's a little too thick back here for, you know, like performance cutting, but you know, it cuts just fine. You're going to be able to cut things just fine. No issues with that. And this front area is a lot better cutting geometry. So, you know, for like I said, the detail or smaller work, you know, like say if you're going to cut a strap, you know, like a zip tie and you're going to push down on a zip tie or possibly open up packages, this is great. This is just fine. And you have a nice durable, strong tip. But for regular slicing, you know, it works just fine. It's just, it's not going to be the best slicer because it's more of a harder use grind back here. Now, for utility cuts, it works great. No problems at all. It has a drop point blade, kind of in the medium area of how much belly it has. So it doesn't have a ton of belly, but it doesn't have a little bit of belly. It has that little medium range. So you can absolutely get to the tip just fine. You're right on the brinks of going up too high, but you're still right there where you can get a good, you know, utility cut without any issues. So just fine with that. Now, the clip and carry. The clip is it's a little tight and it's right next to this cutout. I wish this cutout was on the inside like this. Seems I've said this the past couple reviews, but just like this. Put the cutout on the inside. See how there's no cutout here? It's on the inside. This one, it's on the outside. So that way your pants don't get caught in here when taking it out. Now, yes, I can bend this up a little bit because it does have a little bend to it, which makes it have a little bit more tension. So I didn't work on it, but I did carry it a lot. So it still carries just fine. It's not that big of an issue, but it is a little tight in the pocket, and it, you know, I would say just loosen up the tension a little bit, but it doesn't shift at all, or at least very, very minor shifting. A little tiny bit of shifting, but it is inset in the titanium and it is not reversible. It does have a little cutout right there where the clip goes. But it does carry just fine. It's just, it does kind of hang up in the pocket a little bit when you're taking it out. I would prefer a better, more smoother clip, but it works. It does work. Now, getting to the steel S90V, this is the first time that they have done S90V. So I'll be honest, I was a little bit impressed because this was their first time. Now, I'm not saying that it's an amazing S90V. I'm just saying from my experience with this particular one, it sharpened up really good. It took a very keen edge. It took a fantastic polished edge. I've been using it a lot, guys. I sharpened it pretty quickly after I got it. So this is a very much used polished edge, but it's been stropping back pretty good. It did sharpen up really good. It felt okay on the stone. No problems with that. I didn't have any problems deburring or anything like that. The edge retention, you know, I didn't do a controlled test, but I did notice that it didn't hold as good of a fine edge as I would have liked. However, you know, S90V, I don't think it holds a very fine edge for a very long time anyways. So, you know, it holds a really good working edge for a very long time. So it's hard for me to judge it, you know, without doing a controlled test. But sharpening and everything, I didn't notice anything bad. It felt good, and, you know, I'm happy with it. But, you know, like I said, if there was a controlled test, that might come out with different results. I can't speak to that. I can only speak to how it felt on the stone, deburring, and how it felt on day-to-day life. You know, controlled tests can expose a lot more. But for the first time doing S90V, I could say it's not bad, you know. Now, negative things. So, negative things. This choil. Look, you can see I'm already hitting the plunge. I said that literally in the unboxing. I think I said that. Maybe I didn't. But anyways, the choil, they need to pull this forward. This is the plunge grind is hitting the edge. So when I sharpened, you can see I created a smile. Of course I did. They need to do a better sharpening choil. The sharpening choil should be like more like this. See how this one is? See how the plunge grind is way back here? You can see the plunge grind is separated from the edge. See the line right here? This is far away from the edge. And in this case, the plunge grind hits the edge. Right here's the end of the plunge grind. So this is the beginning. It tapers down and it hits the edge. You got to move that away from the edge. So that's my biggest complaint. Now they did leave room back here because it has an internal stop pin. So they did leave room for me to cut in my own choil. So, you know, I probably will eventually do that. I will probably just carve this whole circle out just a little bit deeper. And, you know, I can use it for a choil. I might extend it up to here. I'm not sure. But because the stop pin's not back here, they left me all the room to do that in the future if I want to. Next thing, yeah, it's a little thick back here. This could definitely be thinned out, but that was kind of the purpose of this knife. This knife is supposed to be a little bit more of a harder use knife, and, you know, it's pretty solid. I just don't think it has I don't think it's as big and bulky as a knife that should be with this type of grind, but it still works just fine. However, you know, I would prefer this to be a hollow grind right here. Do a hollow grind right here and then leave this a flat grind. That would be cool. Or just do one solid flat grind or one solid hollow. That would be the best. I would love to see this all be a hollow grind or an all flat grind. That would be awesome. And he does plan on doing that. Next thing, T6s. I don't like T6s. We have a T8 pivot, but T6s back here, get rid of those. Next thing, like I was saying before, the clip is, it's a little too tight and it's too close to this thing right here. They need to either go over or put the cutout on the inside like this. All right, so that's all the bad things. Let's get to the Keryx. Now, the Keryx, man, I'm loving this thing. I love both of these knives, by the way, and both of these knives are amazing. This one though, I think I've been liking a little bit more. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's an Olamic whippersnapper. It's not. I have an Olamic whippersnapper. Yes, it has a lot of similarities, but it's also got a lot of differences. Anyways, let's get into it. So we have an M390 coated blade. Then we have a titanium frame lock with a inlay on both sides that basically acts as a reverse bolster lock. And I say a reverse bolster lock because a bolster lock is like this, where we have it covered on the bottom. In this case, it's covered on the top, which does help you for being a lefty in this case if you want to reverse flick this. You can easily use this little plate to put your finger and get good reverse flicking. So this is definitely good for a lefty. I always play with it with both hands with zero issues. I don't even think about it when I flick it. It's just super easy. So this is a great one for righties and lefties. Now, we'll go to the action and then we'll talk about everything else. So this, another great case, an amazing front flipper. This is a great example of how a front flipper should be done. The jimping is the kind of jimping you want, nice and sharp, and it wraps all the way up and around the flipper tab. So very easy to front flip. Now, I would say that both of these are very easy. This one is just a little bit better, but this is so close like that it would be a nose-to-nose finish. The one reason why this one would be a little bit back behind the other one is because this flipper tab is a little tall, so it can hit you. So when you flip it, it can do that. Not a big deal. All you have to do is this, and I'm going to show you guys a trick. If you guys ever run into this issue where your flipper tab's hitting, turn it towards you. If you, instead of going like this, go like this towards you and put the finger there and go bam like that, and then you don't have to worry about it hitting you. And you can even have your fingers nice and tall. Well, maybe not that tall, but you can lift your fingers up nice and high, and it doesn't really matter. Usually too, when you do it, like right now I'm under a camera, when you go to front flip, your finger usually goes like that, like the crack of your finger goes right in the way, so it usually just lets a path right by. Even if I do hold it up high, it'll let it past. So you don't have to worry about holding it way down here and doing this to let the flipper go past if you just turn it towards yourself. Anyways, but front flipping action, very, very good. You can do all the little tricks with it. But it is a tall front flipper, so you do have to be cognitive of that for the opening and closing. Because when you go to close it, see, it's right there. So, you know, you get used to it. You get so used to it, like it's second nature to me now, and I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Lock bar access. They didn't really give you a cutout, but they put a chamfer on each side, and it's very easy to disengage. It is false shut action. It took about a day to get to false shut action. So when I first got it, it wasn't as false shutty as this, but it is definitely false shutty now. But super fidgety, very easy to fidget with. Now the thumb flick you can absolutely do too. So you have the reverse flick, which is really nice. The detent is perfectly well tuned for both the front flipper and the reverse flick. Both of them are very nice. And like I said, you can also, you don't really want to slow roll though, but you can thumb flick it. But if you slow roll it, the problem is you can kind of get hit right there. With a flick, your hand kind of goes a little more forward. But if you do want to slow roll, it does kind of hit you. So you can do it. You just have to move your hand out of the way because we have a tall front flipper here. All right, let's get to the rest. So the Ergos are fantastic. This thing feels so good in the hand. It has a similarity to the whippersnapper, but it's a little bigger and a little bit more comfortable. I don't know, maybe not more comfortable, but it's very comfortable. You get up nice and close for these push cuts and slicing, or you can stay back here, or you can spread out. The utility cuts are fantastic. All the Ergos with this thing is great, even on cutting straps. And I did bring this to work, so I did work with this thing and I sharpened it. We'll talk about that in a second. But for cutting performance, the geometry is really nice. It does slice very good. It's not like super duper slicey, but it's not thick at all. So it's just a great happy medium grind, and you can see it. It cuts really good, slices really good, goes through everything I want to throw at it. After sharpening, it's about 17 thousandths behind the edge, so not a big deal at all. I would imagine it's right around 15 before sharpening. So great thickness behind the edge, great geometry, and slicing with it works really good. And one thing I really like, you know, even though it slices through materials really good, you can rotate and turn and get to another grip very, very easily with this. Like, it's very easy to wield and manipulate. I can go from cutting straps to doing a utility cut to doing a push cut very easily with this. It's very easy to control in the hand. Now, with utility cuts, you can see the blade shape. This thing was built for utility cuts. It's not a perfectly straight edge, which I do like, so I can actually get down to a table without the tip, you know, being in the way if I need to. But utility cuts are fantastic. You have a ton of leverage, and the way this handle is built, it snugs right into your hand. You have a really nice utility cutting grip here. So opening things up, even the pinch grip is really nice. You can open things up really easily or do any type of utility cuts really good. This thing cuts like a beast. Really, really good. And the Ergos just, you know, it complements the cutting performance. Now, Another thing, when you do unlock it, what's really nice is you have the front choil there, so it hits your finger with the choil area, which is also really nice. Nice and centered, very locked up, very solid. The plates on it are well put. I do see a little bit of marks in the, what's it called? I can't think of the name of it, but those, you see a couple little dots here and there, but for the voids, I see a couple little tiny voids, but for the most part, it's very nice. The edges are really nice. This type of carbon fiber is susceptible to voids, so it just is what it is, but I'm happy with them. I have to really get up close to see any of them. For the most part, they are all, it's perfect. I barely see any at all. I see one little tiny spot right there, and then a little one right there, but it doesn't bother me at all. Now, the clip and carry. Clip works great. I know it's right here in front of these, but it works. It works just fine. I carried this one a lot, and I had no issues at all with the clip. Now, I can't speak to what will happen with you, but for me, it was fine. No problems, nice tension, and it slips in and out just fine, but I would prefer that this get put on the inside, but, you know, it worked just fine. Tons of milling on this. Let's talk about taking this thing down, because I did take it apart, and upon taking it apart, you can see there is a ton of milling in here. They have a brass pin here holding the backspacer in because it has a screw on both sides. We do have a T8 construction all the way around. Even the clip has a T8 on it. But when you take it off, you'll see there's like discs here for the pivot. There's like these barrels that go in there, which is really nice. You know, it's just you know, a nice way to construct the knife. So I'm happy with that. And then the bearings, it has ceramic caged bearings, and they have a little washer that separates the ceramic bearings from the titanium, which is also nice because you don't have to worry about the ceramic cutting into the titanium. And then there's also a groove cut out into the blade, so everything is nice and tight in there. It's all fit together very nicely in a nice tight constructed area. Now, I do have one complaint, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, before we get to the negative things, I want to speak about sharpening it and how the steel felt. So, first of all, the choil was okay. The plunge grind does kind of get close to the edge, but it's not too bad, and I didn't have any issues sharpening it. But after a few sharpenings, it will start to hit the plunge grind, so I would like to see them pull the plunge grind back a little bit. But no issues, and you will get a few good sharpenings without an issue. So, in that case, this one's fine. Sharpening it on the stone, it was very easy to hold the angle. The steel felt good on the stone. However, this goes for both knives. Both of them did come with not that great of an edge. The factory edges are not good. I do not like the factory edges. They're not very sharp, so I did consider that they were most likely burnt. So when I sharpened both of them, I did remove enough steel to where I would get into some good steel. Now, once, you know, I got past that factory edge, it felt really good on the stone. I mean, it sharpened up really good, took a really keen edge. I mean, a ridiculously sharp edge. This one has been used and stropped back, but I did sharpen it to 3/2 micron. But like I said, this one has been used quite a bit, but it did take a very nice polished edge, and it performed really good. It seemed like after sharpening it, you know, like I said, a very keen edge. But then I went to using it and testing it and everything else. I can't speak on how well it will do in a controlled cut test, but for basic EDC stuff, it held its fine edge pretty good. And when I lost its fine edge, I stropped it back, and it stropped back very nicely. It seemed like it responded to stropping pretty good. I can't speak for its overall edge retention, but as for its fine edge and sharpening, it sharpened up really good, stropped back really good, and deburring it went well. It wasn't bad. I wouldn't say it was like perfect. You know, I did have to play with the burr a little bit, but nothing that I would consider bad, you know, just kind of like on the normal end of what you would consider, you know, deburring. It wasn't like an amazing thing, nothing I would brag about, but it deburred just fine. But yeah, so, you know, all in all, I'm happy with it, no problems with it. And like I said, it took a ridiculously sharp edge, and I'm very happy with how it felt on the stone. Now, for some negative things. But all in all, I'm loving this knife quite a bit. But we do have a couple negative things. First negative thing. If you hear that, that is the washer or the bearings kind of going like this inside there. It's very subtle, and I have, like, you don't hear it right now while it's closed, but when I open it, you can hear it, and I didn't notice it for a long time. It took until I shook it to hear it, so it's not like you hear it really until you really try to hear it, and I did narrow it down to that because the internal stop pin that's in there, it's not that. That is very nice and strong, and that's locked up very solid. It's not the stop pin. It is something in the it's the washer, I think. The washer, I think, has a little bit of play in there. Now, you could stop that by just adding a little tiny bit of grease and then just put the washer on top of a bit of grease and it won't move at all. But I use the KPL, so with the KPL, it is a little more slick, so it allows it to kind of bounce around in there a little bit. Not that big of a deal, and I'll be honest, it never bothered me once. Some people might be very, very, very nitpicky, lefty, and that might bug the hell out of them. It didn't bother me at all. But it is a thing, I could easily stop with a little bit of grease. Next thing, the T8 here. Okay, so this T8, let me just grab my thing. Okay, so just to show you, this T8, nice and deep, very deep. You see how deep that thing went? Very, very nice. Focus. Now this one, not so deep. That's it. I don't like that. This one, nice and deep. Very nice and deep. Holds in there really good, nice and solid. I'm trying to do this through the camera. Nice and deep. But this one is just more shallow, and I don't like that. So these two in particular, all the rest are good. Maybe it's just this particular screw setup was just that way. I don't know, but it is a thing, and I felt my screw slip out once, and then I realized, like, I got to hold this one really good to make sure it comes apart. Now, it came apart and went back together just fine. No issues aside from the depth of these screws. Now, that's really it. Other than that, this thing's been top notch. I do really like it. Like I said, it has a tall front flipper, so you want to be cognitive of that. But I find I don't have no issues with it. I absolutely love this thing. I actually even carried it to a party. So that says a lot because I like to carry a knife that I'm proud of. And I've noticed that the titanium is getting more of a darker color the more I hold it. I really like that. I noticed it was more gray. Now it's turning into more of a bronzed color, which I really, really like. It's just been an amazing piece. I do like this one quite a bit, and I believe this is my favorite Miguron knife yet. And even though I love this one a lot, I still like this one a little bit more. But there you guys go. Either way, though, I gotta say, if you like the way this one looks more than this one, get this one because it's still a great knife. I had my couple complaints. I told you guys about it, but it's still a very solid knife, and I like it quite a bit. But there you guys go. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.